Hello, women of welcome. I am Sarah Quezada, and it's really great to be on Instagram Live with you today. We have a fun interview coming your way from a writer whose name is Sarah Rubio, and she has written a children's book about refugee issues. And so I'm really excited for her to join us here shortly. And I see she's watching, which is awesome. I'll tell you a little bit about this book because I was, oh, here she is. I was looking up this book earlier today and hi, Sarah. You might
Hi,
have
how
to
are
turn the
you?
camera around. Hello, it's nice to see you on the interwebs.
Great to be here. Thanks
Wonderful.
for having me on.
Absolutely. We're so glad you could spend a little time with us. And welcome to everyone who's watching live. We're so glad that you're able to join us. Or if you're watching on our IGTV after the fact, we're glad you're here as well. If you're new to Women of Welcome, I just want to introduce our community. We are a community of Christian women pursuing compassion and Christ-like welcome for immigrants and refugees. And it's so exciting to have Sarah with us today because she obviously has a heart for this same topic. And the book that she wrote, I'll go ahead and tell you, it's called Far From Home. And it was I'm going to find the exact words here, for the Evangelical Christian Publishing Association. Yes, there's a picture of it. Book Award finalist this year, which is really awesome. Congratulations, Sarah.
Thank you.
So
It was also
we
one of Christianity Today's books of 2020, which was really exciting.
That is very exciting. That is no easy feat to get on those book lists, and because there's so many good books being written. So it's great to see
Yeah.
the Christian community really rallying and saying this is an important topic for a book for kids, and this is a good one to check out. So, and actually Sarah has graciously offered us some free copies to give away. So we invite you to comment on this video and we will select a few lucky folks to get a free copy of Far From Home. So Sarah, tell me a little bit about what inspired you to write this book.
Yeah, so I was actually just kind of driving on a cold winter day here in Chicagoland, and
That's most
just
every day,
listening to
right?
one yeah, there's a lot of them. um, So, just listening to one of those news stories, about displaced families. And, I just started kind of thinking about um, just, parents and kids and, what is it like to be a parent and have to tell your kids, we have to leave, everything that makes up your world. And I was kind of thinking about, kids and their little worlds and the things that, are just part of their lives, the people they love, the things that they love, their homes, their friends. So, I was just kind of thinking about, my two boys who were really little at the time and, just like what would it be like to have to, tell them we have to leave all of this and start over.
Mhm.
And so I started thinking about, a little boy and his room and his toys and, his grandparents and that's kind of just where the story sort of came from.
Yeah.
So I've had some experience traveling internationally with little kids, in the absolute best of circumstances, and it's really stressful, even when you have, security and money and, family on both ends, and just thinking like, wow, what would it be like to do that, with none of those safety nets that I've enjoyed. And my husband is an immigrant, so I've navigated the U.S. immigration system, which is so complex and so confusing, even when, again, you have the money and the connections and the language
Yeah.
and like the computer skills. And it was, it's just so difficult, even with all those things, and just thinking about, trying to do that without, again, any of those privileges or safety nets. I just remember sitting in front of that immigration officer and knowing like he held, our future in his hands. And kind of just thinking about those experiences and sort of, extrapolating what it would be like to have to navigate that as someone who has been, displaced not by their own choice from their home.
Absolutely, absolutely. we are not only both named Sarah, but we also are both married to immigrants. And so I'm very familiar with that process. And it is a very vulnerable position to be in when you're sitting across an interview desk thinking this person has the power to change my life one
What's
way or
that
the other.
Sam gonna say?
And it's humbling, it's scary, it's unsettling. There's just so much emotion and just like you said, there are so many kids who are walking through this experience. And so tell me a little bit about, because our community has a lot of mothers and grandmothers and aunties, all kinds of women who are influencers of children. And this comes up a lot in our community of how do we talk to our kids about this? How do we involve our kids in a conversation about immigrants and refugees, or in something tangible where they can connect with a family or be supported? And so I'd love to hear a little bit from you, having written a book for children about this, kind of why you think it's important to discuss these topics with kids, and any tips or insights you have for having those conversations.
Yeah, I mean, part of why I wanted to write this book was really as like a very entry level conversation, to just kind of start having these kind of conversations with young kids. There are a lot of really good books, about the refugee experience out there. But I kind of saw a gap in one that was just like really introducing the topic in a way that was, I think, just really very basic. And so that was kind of the thinking behind that. And I think it is important to start to, help our kids sort of look beyond themselves. I think, it's very human to be very self-centered, and that's what comes naturally, that's kind of the way we're born. So I think it's our job as parents to, start to help them look beyond themselves, to start to help them use that imagination and that empathy to connect to others. And I think especially for kids, like many of ours who do, we're born into a lot of security, a lot of affluence. It's important for them to learn that, that's not the experience of probably most of the world. To start learning that what we have is a gift, and, it's not something to be, ashamed of or embarrassed about, but it is something to be responsible with and to share. So, what does it mean, maybe to share the things that we've been given? So, I didn't want that to be like a scary conversation or a sad conversation. And I think that sometimes we can sort of underestimate what our kids are ready to talk about. I think that, I think story time is a very secure time. It's a very warm time. So I think it's a great time to kind of bring these things up.
Yeah, no, that's a beautiful picture. I definitely think kids can have these conversations. And, I have a friend who the phrase she always says to me is, give kids the age appropriate truth. And I think that is something I've always thought about in all kinds of different topics. How do I give my kids the age appropriate truth? And so, this is a really good, safe way to kind of on-ramp them into a conversation through a story that they can connect with. So I just want to continue to welcome people who are joining us live. And again, I'm speaking with Sarah Rubio, who is the author of the children's book Far From Home, which follows the experience of a refugee child and family. And there's copies that we are giving away. So if you want to comment on the video, you'll be entered to win a free copy. Sarah, as you've seen kids reading the book, or maybe you've had the opportunity even to do some virtual story times, because when did the book come out? In 2020, right?
No, it came out actually in October of last year.
So it's been about a year.
I did get to do a couple things in person.
Wonderful. How do you see children connecting with the story, or what are they, what's kind of their response as you see kids reading the book and interacting with it?
Yeah, I've actually been surprised at sort of the breadth and variety of, of things that kids have said and have kind of drawn from it. And I've actually been surprised at, how much they connect like with the story, because on one level you could say, oh, well, that's not the experience of most of the kids who are reading it, very different life experience. But, they really, I found that they really kind of identify with it, as child to child. And that was my goal in writing, was, to kind of bring out what are things that all kids feel, what would any kid feel in this situation? And it's been really interesting. So in the book, I, connect the story of the little boy to the story of Jesus, who, had to flee to a different country with his parents when he was very young. And so I found a lot of kids are connecting with that. A lot of kids have said that it helps them remember that Jesus is with them, when they go through a hard time or when they feel sad. Mm-hmm. One little girl said that her takeaway was that it's okay to be sad, which I thought was really an interesting takeaway. Yeah, and then some kids have sort of gotten the obvious sort of what I intended as part of thinking about others, thinking about people who don't have homes, remembering, praying for them. So it's been really fun.
That's good.
And some kids just love just love the pictures.
Yes, I am a mother of one of those. So I'm curious, is this your first children's book that you've written, or?
It is, yeah.
So you felt this was a really big swing of just feeling committed to this story and wanting to see it come to kids. That's really, really great. Let's see. I had a few other questions. Yeah, I think I'm curious too, because in a lot of these kinds of books, adults are also reading it. So I guess I'm curious what you would say you hope is your takeaway for all readers, kids or adults, as far as when they read this story, what you would hope they take away from it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would hope that most of all that people would see, I think just the heart of God for all his children. I think that, Jesus, who again had this experience as a child, I believe that the displaced are, very close to his heart. And, they're families, it's mothers like you and me. It's, children like our children. I think that sometimes we can put up sort of unnecessary distance, between us and people who we feel may have had experiences that are really different from ours. But, at the heart, we're people, we're families, we're, we feel things the same way. And so, these are not, people who are far away, who are, alien or foreign to us. These are our fellow parents, our sisters, our brothers, our children. And so, I hope that the people will identify with that and see, what can I do? What can I do to take care of these people who are mine, who belong to me? We take care of our people, right? So, I hope that, we would sort of expand that view of, who's my neighbor kind of thing. And, really, really connect to the heart of Jesus for these families.
That's beautiful. Yes, I think that speaks to the heart of so many women in our community, because like I mentioned before, we have lots of women who are connected to children, whether mothers or grandmothers or aunts or Sunday school teachers. And there's just this desire to nurture that compassion in our children that we're fostering ourselves, and to help them come along in that journey, and to love their neighbors, and to share, and to give, and to be in relationship with. So it's a beautiful way to do that, I think, through story. We had one question in the comments about what was the most challenging part of writing the book.
Oh man, I mean, publishing is not a business for the faint of heart, let me tell you.
It's not. So true.
It is. I actually, my day job, I'm actually an editor of children's books, so I get to be around this all the time, which is super fun. It's the best job ever, but it was surprisingly difficult to be kind of on the other side of the desk. I thought that, I kind of know how this goes. I know how the process goes. It'll be, it should be easy. It should be natural. But yeah, it's a very vulnerable process, kind of writing and putting it out there. Having it be evaluated and have a publisher decide whether or not they're going to take a chance on it and investing in it. And then that's just really the beginning, then editing, the illustration. I think the most challenging thing was just, just kind of wondering like, am I the right person to write this story? Like, it's such an important story. It's such a, it's such an important issue. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to mess it up. I didn't want to, inadvertently cause harm instead of doing good. So I think kind of just sort of wrestling with that. It feels like, I was kind of put in the right place at the right time and given the opportunity to do it. And so I felt like the faithful thing to do was to do it. But, I still kind of struggle with those doubts of, was it really the right thing or was it really the best thing? And then kind of just all the marketing journey and the trying to get the word out on all of that. So
Yes, the publishing journey
everything was the most challenging part.
The story sometimes is the easiest part of the whole publishing experience. It's everything that's not the writing that's tricky. And I was thinking, so if this book came out last year, you probably wrote it then in 2018. Was that when you were?
I actually wrote it in 2017. It was a really long journey, to publication. So,
because I was just thinking about how much our refugee system has changed between 2017 to now, and so that makes this story even continually necessary for people to read, because we're trying to figure out what does it mean to re-welcome refugees into the United States, and how do we rebuild that infrastructure that has really been unbuilt over the last few years. Another great question from the comment says, what was your inspiration for the story personal?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I mean, there were pieces of it, like I mentioned before, kind of pieces from my own experience that I related to a little bit. So I grew up as a missionary kid. So I grew up in a country different from the one I was born in. So I have some experience with sort of living in a different culture, kind of traveling back and forth, kind of not really knowing which culture you belong to as a third culture kid, as many refugee kids are. They grow up sort of in a different culture from their parents. And then again, like with my husband's experience as an immigrant. And so yeah, there were kind of pieces, nothing obviously to the extent or degree as someone who's been displaced, but sort of pieces that sort of gave me sort of an entry for my imagination.
Absolutely. That's great. Yeah, I think it's, we get inspired by all those different things. Kind of, you mentioned hearing things in the news, but then you also had your personal story with your husband and your own story growing up. So it's interesting to see how all of those come together for the story that you're telling. Well, Sarah, thank you so much for joining us on here. And I hope those who have joined here at the end, I just want to again say the name of her book is called Far From Home. Do you want to show the image of it again? Show the copy? Yes, and it is a children's book. And I love actually the subtitle because it says A Story of Loss, Refuge, and Hope. And I think that resonates with a lot of us in 2020 for a variety of reasons, but I hope that it will help us to grow empathy and compassion for folks who have been through some really difficult journeys, and be invited into those stories. We appreciate you writing that. And so can you tell people where they can get the book and how they can connect with you if they want to connect with more of your writing in the future?
Absolutely. So you can buy the book pretty much anywhere you like to buy books. If you like to buy them online or in store, if you like to support indie booksellers, if they don't carry it, most of them will be happy to order it for you. So
that's great.
And then you can connect with me on Instagram at Sarah Rubio Books, same on Facebook, and my website is sarahparkerrubio.com.
Awesome. Well, Sarah, thank you so much. And again, those of you that watch, thanks so much for joining us. And if you want to leave a comment, you'll be entered to win a copy of Far From Home. And we are very excited to be able to share this resource with our community. So thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah. It was great talking to you today. Thanks, everybody.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
We'll see if I can end this. Feels like there should be a button.